only been starstruck in front of folks who I don't feel that I'll ever see in real life. Michelle Obama was one of them. We were in the White House and it was right before the Trump presidency. And it was just this like feeling of deflation. I remember asking, did you watch the debates between Hillary and Trump? And she was like, I didn't even watch them. She was like, I can't go there. And it was one of those moments where it clarified to me these mega stars that we're working with for the purpose of putting them on the cover of the biggest fashion magazine in the world, they're showing up on their Tuesday or whatever. Like, this is just a day in life. I was like pretty starstruck with Kamala Harris only because it was during COVID. And so we couldn't get very close.
Right.
So I only saw her out of the corner of my eye. And when she was on set, we were 20 feet away and she had all the Secret Service around her. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, she's the first Black vice president.
I'm Jill Demling, and this is Going Rogue. Today's guest is Gabriella Karefa-Johnson, a fashion force who's made it her mission to shake up the industry from the inside out. She got her start under our recent Going Rogue guest, Tonne Goodman, and in 2021, she became the first Black woman to style a cover of Vogue. Gabby's work is layered, joyful, and pointed, and she fiercely champions emerging designers and size inclusivity, staking her claim on the right side of fashion history, even if it means starting a very public feud with a certain disgraced music icon. In 2023, she left Vogue on her own terms and is now shaping a career with more creative freedom, more diversity, and absolutely no plans to quiet down. Let's hear what happens when Gabriella Karefa-Johnson goes rogue. And remember to head to our Instagram, goingrogue.podcast, to see the images we discussed today. Hi, Gabby.
How are you?
Good. I have to say, I've been loving all your videos, the TikToks, the getting dressed, the witch bag, all of that stuff, your travel videos, the masks, content creator. I love it.
Thank you. I've been trying. I'm in my freelance era and I've really been trying to diversify the way that I tell stories. And I know we'll get into all of that, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yes. And just for everyone listening out there, how would you describe your personal style in a few words?
Ooh, chaotic. If I had to describe my personal style, I would say chaotic. I would say eclectic. And getting myself dressed is definitely an exercise in figuring out how I want to show up in the world. I feel like I'm very hard to miss, especially in the environments that I work in fashion. It's a lot of thin white girls. I am a fat Black woman. And I'm like, if I'm going to stand out, I'm going to really stand out. So that's my personal style.
That's amazing. Yes, I love that way of thinking. So I know you are a very in-demand stylist and have a tight schedule today. So instead of dipping into your childhood, I will give the listeners the Cliff Notes version, and then we'll jump right to the Vogue years. So please chime in or correct me if I get anything wrong, because this is AI telling us about Gabby. Okay, and I'm paraphrasing since AI is very verbose. I don't know why he can't just get to the point, but
I love that he's a man. He's for sure unable to get to the point.
Yeah. So you're raised in Ojai, California.
And I went to Ojai, California.
Okay, high school. And your grandparents were very involved in your upbringing.
Yeah.
Your family has a notable history. Your grandmother was the first Black woman to graduate from Yale Divinity School, and your grandfather was the first foreign minister of Sierra Leone. Yep. AI says that, quote, your formative years and your family background likely played a role in shaping your perspectives and approach to the world before you embarked on your career in fashion. After graduating cum laude from Barnard College in 2013 with a degree in art history, you embarked on a series of roles that further solidified your understanding of the fashion industry. You gained practical experience through various internships, including a significant one at WWD's Paris Bureau, which exposed you to the international fashion scene. Following this, you worked under the mentorship of Josie at Elle Magazine, where you navigated the world of celebrity styling. Now I know why you're so good with celebrities. You came in with experience. A pivotal role before assisting Hamish Bowles was your time working with Julia Sargemois. Is that correct? At Wonderland, this experience likely honed your editorial eye and styling sensibilities, contributing to your growth as a fashion professional. These diverse experiences post-college provided you with a well-rounded perspective on the industry before you joined Vogue as an assistant to Hamish Bowles. Does that sum up 2 decades?
That sums up 2 decades really well. I'm actually frightened at how accurate AI is. Wow, we don't need humans anymore. Jill, get off the mic. Put on AI.
Exactly. But it was funny because it makes it clear that fashion was in your blood, or that you knew at a pretty young age that you wanted to get into the fashion industry. And I know your aunt, Rosalie, was the first influence, correct? She was a model in the 70s, 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, she was. She was. And I kind of discovered her photos in her attic in her home in Connecticut. And I really thought, oh, well, I want to be exactly like Aunt Rosalie. I'm going to be a model. And then, of course, we knew what the landscape was in the 90s and 2000s when I was like kind of solidifying what I wanted to do with my life. And being a model became very far-fetched concept in terms of what bodies were allowed to be models. And I found that I could satisfy my obsession with fashion in like a more intellectual way. And that's how I found my way to writing about fashion, which inevitably became styling fashion.
So, what did your mother think of this career choice? You went to Barnard, a fabulous college, studying art history. I studied studio art, but did she know that you probably chose Barnard because it was in New York City and you were going to follow your dream and get into fashion, not art?
Yeah. Well, the reason why I ended up going to Barnard in the first place is because I was very clear with my mother that I wanted to work in fashion. I grew up in the era of reality TV when we were seeing Kelly Catrone's Office and we were seeing Lauren Conrad on the Hills, and Lisa, of course, that you and I know very well from Vogue, kind of represented this like LA version of what could happen. And I thought, I have to be in New York if I want to work in fashion. And my mom's only caveat was, you have to get a degree from a liberal arts college. You have to have a foundation in something that you will be able to practice in if fashion doesn't work out. And honestly, she was just really, really scared for me. I think she understood the way that the world works a little better than I did at the time. I was like this young, idealistic person, and I didn't really realize how much volatility I might experience trying to break into fashion as somebody who doesn't look like or come from the kinds of folks that succeed in fashion. And so she just wanted me to protect myself and have a backup plan, which thank God I haven't had to use yet.
Right. Well, I've heard that from a lot of guests, and I do think there's 2 ways that some of the guests experienced this from their parents. One was the fear, exactly that, the fear that their child will be rejected, or they just didn't think it was possible. You have Phyllis growing up in Long Island. Father ran a hardware store. Her parents said, no, there's no way you're going to work at Vogue. And she just stopped talking about it. And for Norman Jean Roy in Tennessee, New York City seemed like another continent. So it's either fear of your children experiencing failure or just get a real job that can pay your bills because I'm not paying for you anymore. So I totally understand that. And I do think in a way it's pretty amazing that you did have that openness and or naivety, whatever it was. That's powerful in a way versus having known what it was really going to be like, because that may have kept you from pursuing it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when I entered into fashion, I was really bullish about it. And when I reflect on the beginning of my career, there were moments wherein if I was not completely convinced in myself that I could do this, it would have been much easier to walk away. But I guess that's kind of the silver lining of a bit of arrogance. It's like, you're not going to tell me I'm not going to do this. And because you said I'm not going to do it, now I'm going to really fucking do it. And so it was really a motivation. Every no was like a motivation. And there were definitely no's.
That's credit to your upbringing and the strong women in your life that you felt like you could do anything.
Absolutely.
Applause to your mama there. So Vogue. So you get to the point where you hear about a job for Hamish Bowles. Now, how is that process? Because I've spoken to everyone about their first interviews, whether it's with HR or obviously with Anna, and everybody remembers both usually. So,
Yeah.
how did you go about even getting in the doors for that interview? I know you had interned a bit, but then we
Yeah.
got rid of that program. And honestly, I don't recall interning there leading to a position there anyway, because you're just kind of carrying clothes back and forth. It wasn't a real
Yeah.
internship. So, yeah, tell us about how you even got in the door and then what those interviews were like and the moment that you heard you got the job.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the process of getting through the doors at Vogue after my internship were basically I was at Barnard College, as you said, and I had a colleague in the French department. Her name was Sophie, and she was assisting Hamish at the time. It was during her senior year, and she ended up graduating and she wanted to move to France. She really wanted to pursue her studies in French. And she was like, look, I know this is really weird. It's not directly the fashion department, but I remember you being there. I really want to replace myself because I don't want to get in trouble for quitting abruptly. Would you ever come in and speak to Hamish's first assistant, Lindsay Talbot? And she was like a secondary assistant at the time. And I came in and I said, yeah, I would love to. And she gave me the rundown. She was like, look, this is a very patrician woman. She's grown up in these halls. She like understands everything that Hamish is writing about, and you might be coming in at a deficit. But if you can really prove to her that you know what you're talking about, you might have a shot. And I went in and I met with Lindsay, and I remember the questions being like a bit bizarre. It was like, where did you grow up? And what do you do in your free time? Which is a question that was also asked of me by
Yep.
Anna when I got
Yep.
there. But it was so strange because I thought none of this has anything to do with my aptitude as an assistant. And so I just found a way to fudge around it. And I really made sure to communicate that I was studying art history and that I was very much a student of the city and I understood references and I wanted to be work for Hamish to learn. And she didn't seem super convinced. For whatever reason, she sent me home with an edit test. And that test, you had to transcribe an interview of Hamish's, which is Hamish. It was the most amazing crash course in personal assisting because everything is impossible. His recorder doesn't work, the sound
Yep.
cuts out. You're like doing research to figure out what the words were. And I spent days on this edit test, like far longer than I should have. I ended up calling people, and there was one Danish museum he kept talking about, and I didn't know what this museum was, and I couldn't figure it out. I had a friend who was in Copenhagen at the time, and she identified it for me. And I think just those two little kind of impossible moments
Yep.
within the edit test that I was able to achieve, I think that they were like planted really to figure out, can you make it work? Can you figure things out? I think those moments kind of swung it with him. And I think he did also like that my family had quite an international background. It was so interesting at Vogue because I showed up in that space and I think I was contending with a lot of preconceptions about who I was and whether I could belong there and whether I could live and survive in those rooms. And so I took every opportunity I could, including my interview with Hamish, to dispel those misconceptions and to prove that I actually really did belong. And
that is a huge thing. And it's not just with the people that work there, it's also with the people we put in the magazine. I'm digressing a bit, but I was telling this story the other day about when Emily Ratajkowski was first on the scene. And I really wanted to put her in Vogue in that one page, I think it was Style Ethics feature. But I knew if I brought her up in a meeting that it was probably going to be a woman that says something, probably a word like slutty, probably a word like trashy, cheap, maybe, because of the video that she had done, the topless video. And then once someone started saying that, you'd get the peanut gallery, and then there'd be no chance for me. So I wanted her to come in, and I told her publicist, who's a dear friend, to have her wear her hair pulled back, a button down, buttoned all the way up, jeans and ballet flats, and just talk about art, talk about the film she was in and all of that, so that she would dispel it immediately just by what she was wearing.
yeah,
And then people would actually listen. So
right.
I totally know what you're saying.
It's so bizarre. Now that you're talking about that, those meetings were often difficult because
Mm-hmm.
Vogue is a place that represents the zeitgeist in theory, and it's supposed to be reflective of the world that we live in. And even now, I think one of the biggest cover stars we've ever had is somebody who became famous showing their body on a tape and engaging in lewd activities. And I think like we were there really when the world was changing, and we happened to be able to like slide in, slide under the radar and prove that humans contain multitudes and perfection shouldn't be what we strive to reflect at Vogue. It should be reality and the diverse tapestry of the world that we live in. So yeah, it felt when I made it through those doors, it felt like affirmation that things were changing.
Well, while we're just talking about this, there was a quote from you about who's Vogue and who's not Vogue. You said that when you were coming back to Vogue, that you were really going to push hard for those people you wanted to work with or you wanted to style, even if they were called not Vogue. And I remember that so clearly, Vogue and not Vogue. And it was a constant struggle. We were there together. I'm sure you know, I was constantly fighting. Why is she not Vogue? Yes, she is Vogue. She's done this, this, this. Yes, I never talked about her appearance, but I talked about who she was, her achievements when I was trying to push someone through. So while we were on that, I just figured I'd slide that in. So once you met with Hamish, then you obviously had to meet with Anna, right?
Well, what was so weird is I didn't have to meet with Anna for Hamish. I didn't meet with Anna until Tonne. And I think it's because I was like sliding in under the radar because I was replacing a second assistant. And then in the first 2 weeks of my job, Hamish's first assistant also left. Lindsay, I think she got promoted within Vogue.
Oh, right. Wait, so I didn't even know Hamish had two assistants.
I have no idea how he had two assistants, but I actually do remember it was like during the time when he was doing his column. It was like him trying all the different things. Remember?
Oh, right. Yes. I made him learn how to play basketball with Amari Stoudemire.
Learn how to play basketball in air quotes. In like Tom Ford, probably. And then
and he had the house stories too.
He had the house stories, and he also was still doing some cover stories. So I think they let him have a second assistant because it was like the biggest, bulkiest point of his time at Vogue. And then Lindsay Talbot left, and I took her place as first assistant. I guess I had verified that I was good enough to do the job, and so I didn't have to meet with Anna. But yeah, the meeting with Anna, I remember a lot with.
Yeah, it's so funny because I don't remember you before Tonne's assistant, and I was in the features department. It's funny when you talked about features girl versus fashion girl, because I totally remember that. And I think that's something worth touching on too for everyone listening, because there definitely was a clear divide. And even appearance wise, it's almost like they cast the roles to make the fashion girls look very different from the features girls. I mean, I was a features girl, and honestly, I know how stressful it was and how expensive it was to get dressed for work. Usually you spend on your going out clothes, not your work clothes. But to fit in, I remember when I first started, Bucky Keaty was in HR at that time, and when she called me in to meet Anna, she told me to wear skinny heels. It's 1998. I was like, what the hell are skinny heels? I have no idea. I have like my 9 West or whatnot. But so that is something.
That is something. I think what people don't understand is it's like we live in a contemporary world for sure, but a lot of what happens in the Condé Nast building is like hyper traditionalist. And there was the role to be played on the features end, which was like you're the bookish, kind of like not seen, not heard, doing the grind work. And then the fashion side is the like glamorous. And it's like almost almost to our detriment, because fashion is very hard work. And sometimes those who are working in that department aren't necessarily up to the work part and are very, very, very good at the appearance part.
Right.
But there was this idea that the fashion team was kind of ornamentation. Like they like, looked good in the hallway, and
they're all blonde. All blonde and all from wealthy backgrounds. We had Tinsley Mortimer, who interned for a bit too. I was like, another blonde? What is going on? They honestly all looked alike, I have to say.
I think it's just reflective of I mean, it's socioeconomics and it's like also nepotism and all of those things that exist everywhere out, not just at Vogue, but it was very stark relief. And I think that part of the reason why I didn't have to meet Anna when I was on the feature side is it's like, well, we're not going to interact at all. She's not,
Right.
nobody coming into the office is going to see her. She's going to be in a cubicle. It's fine. Like pay whoever is going to get the job done. Um,
Oh
yeah.
my
So
God.
the transition to working in fashion was difficult because I really felt the burden of like not being like fashion folk. Like I really was scared that what I looked like, where I came from, would preclude me or exclude me rather from even being in contention. But I don't know, hard work pays off.
So you first met Tani, and did you know Tani just from being at the office or?
Yeah, I know. The funny thing is I knew Tawny from being at the office for sure, but I also started at Vogue right after the September issue documentary came out. And so I was really drawn to her, I guess the portrayal of her, which honestly, all of them were so caricaturized in that movie. Like it's not super accurate to who they are. But I was like, this is a no nonsense fashion editor. There's like an intellect to what she does. She is like methodical and precise. She lets everything roll off her back. Like she must be the coolest one. Not, I could see that from the film. And
Right.
obviously she was the coolest one. And she was the most amazing person to learn under. But I was also really afraid of her. I really thought that she would be filed in that kind of old school category of fashion editor who yells and who tantrums and who, is so snobby and snooty that she couldn't even imagine, this woman from the Upper East Side or Upper West Side, I think is where she grew up. She couldn't even imagine having an assistant like me. And it was totally not the truth.
Oh yeah. She had an Asian male and an
Before me.
Asian female. Wasn't Ethel with her too?
Ethel.
So she definitely had the most diverse
Yeah.
office. And having interviewed her already, her love of art, that's a connection. The intellectual family, your intellectual family. I didn't even know either of those things, but it's
Yeah.
almost as if you guys were kindred spirits in a way.
Sure. I know. I always call us the odd couple because we like really are soulmates. I don't know how the hell we found each other, but she remains a really good friend of mine. And I learned everything that I know from Tawny, really and truly. Um,
And she needed a personality like you, I think. She's more reserved, which you are not. And what I saw from spending so much time with the two of you and so much time in that office where you two were 3 feet away from each other,
yeah.
if that, and you really balanced each other. She really leaned on you for a lot of ideas. You did a lot of those shoots. Those were
Yeah.
co-shoots, a lot of them,
Yeah.
co-styled.
Definitely. I think Tawny was one of the most amazing editors at the time because she valued the voice of a generation that she didn't necessarily participate in. Like she loved to hear what was happening culturally. She loved to hear ideas about how we should dress a cover talent. And it was incredible to be able to be honest with her. She wouldn't always accept the ideas, and sometimes she would have much better ideas. And we really just were able to work as collaborators. And I was still learning from her the entire process. I think it's like a very impossible situation to come across nowadays because there isn't so much reverence for apprenticeship anymore. I think I'm dealing with it with my own assistants, the idea that like, if you have a platform, you can make your own future. And so there isn't a ton of interest in learning and taking a beat, figuring out all the rules and all of that stuff. But Tawny gave me the space to do all of that and also still affirmed my voice. And I think if we had more editors like that, the landscape of current stylists would look a lot different.
Yeah, that's interesting that's interesting what you just said about this generation, because when I spoke to Carla Martinez, she talked about the most valuable experience she's had were those internships, were the grinding assistant jobs, really doing the work, because then you're seeing what everyone else has done, what it took for people like Phyllis to get to where she was. She started working at Vogue at 20 as a secretary to Diana Vreeland. Everyone's paid their dues, and you kind of need to jump over all of that and just expect to land at the top of the masthead. I can see a lot of pushback from other people, and just you're missing a whole bunch of learnings that are going to help you there. So that's interesting. But back to your interview with Anna. Did you really answer her question of what you want to do in 10 years by saying you want to be editor-in-chief of Vogue?
Yeah, I did. I think I said more along the lines of like, well, I think I kind of want your job. I want to be the editor-in-chief of Vogue. And she like, it was a little chuckle, and it wasn't really a chuckle. It was like a little upturned smile. And I thought it was a cheeky way to respond because I mostly really didn't think I was going to get the job. I was up against a veteran fashion assistant. His name was Francisco, who had been on like shadowing Bo, who had been on all of the shoots. And I don't really know why he didn't get the job, but I think I can imagine that what got me the job was that interview with Anna. And she has been really supportive of me. We've had a lot of time while I was at Vogue, when I came back to Vogue, and also since I've left, where she's really affirmed that she believes in me, even if we butt heads, even if there is an incongruous idea of how we should go about molding this industry. She has always been deeply supportive in that way. So thank God.
Do you remember what you wore to your interview with Anna?
Oh, yeah. I was told to wear florals, which I knew she was obsessed with florals. Like, I knew that from what the magazine looked like and also like how she dressed. And it was like that era of like, do you remember when everyone was wearing like sundresses to the office? Like,
yeah, but I just think that's so specific. It's one thing to say don't wear black, but floral?
Wear floral. It was in the spring/summer that I did the interview. And I was like, okay, fuck, because I don't own anything floral. And also, at the same time as contending with being dead broke, I was also contending with being plus size. So it's like I couldn't even just pull from the closet. That was
right.
Fashion girls used to like really rally around people they wanted to get promoted or whatever. And you'd go into the closet and they'd lend you a pair of Manolos and you could like pull something off of the racks. But that was impossible for me. So I remember going to Target because at the time they had a collaboration with Peter Pilotto, the designer, which was all about prints and color. And I found one top that fit me. And it was close enough to their runway sample. Like they clearly adapted it for like mass consumption, but it was close enough that I thought I could get away with it. And I only had black pants or jeans. So I ended up wearing black pants. And I forced my size 42 foot into a size 40 Manolo from that closet. And I hobbled in, and I guess that was that. I think that I sold it, but I don't know.
And I know whenever I had to talk to Anna, not necessarily my first interview because I didn't know who she was. So I was like, hey, but when I tried to resign the first time and the final time, I had written like note cards that I like memorized. Did you have a whole spiel?
Okay, so I'm an incredibly anxious, avoidant person. And I'm also like a bit of a self-saboteur. And I was like, whatever's meant to be will be. Like, I'm not going to prepare. I'm just going to walk in. I prepared my look. And I knew that she was going to ask me what I wanted to do and also what I did in my free time. And I'm pretty sure I like emotionally blacked out during that interview because I can barely remember. I remember.
That's normal. That's normal. Many people, they remember what they wore, but they blacked out during the actual interview.
Well, what's so strange is I really remember it being very short, like too short.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 7 minutes or something maximum.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't prepare so much, although I did make sure that I went to a couple of museums the week before because I knew that I got my job with Hamish. I thought my pedigree in art history and my interest in academia, like those are going to be things that sing through. So I want to make sure that I've seen the newest shows out because what if she asked me? And she didn't, but I did a little bit of prep. I just wanted to like make sure she knew I was the real deal and I wasn't bullshitting in my interview.
I have prepped so many celebrities for those meet and greets with her. I said, so she's going to ask you your favorite designers. And this was back when I was there. You're going to say Oscar de la Renta for red carpet, rag and bone for just every day. And it's so funny with Katy Perry in particular. I prepped her and I dressed her And I basically told her what designers and what kind of looks to wear for the meeting. And I walked her in there and she was wearing this poncho. And Anna said, "Oh, is that Rag and Bone?" And she goes, "Yes, it is." And she looks back at me and winks. I'm like, "Yes." But I said, "Talk about Obama." This was during the second election. And I said, "Definitely talk about Obama and wanting Obama and anything you've done to support him for reelection, and talk about Roger Federer and Wimbledon. But ask her questions or bring up topics to engage her that I'm telling you she likes to talk about." So, and I did all of that.
Interesting. Sorry, I know that you're the interviewer here, but I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated now. Do you think that she knows that these talent are prepped for her?
I would assume she expects them to prepare. For instance, Brie Larson. I had Brie Larson go in around the time of the Met. She had Glass Castle coming out, which I thought was amazing. It was a very Vogue film as far as it was about a fashion editor, a writer. So I was like, this is a good one. She's looking really good. She goes in, and I believe it was the day after the Met Gala, and Anna said to her, "Oh, did you see the exhibition?" And she said, "Oh, no, when's it opening?" or something like that. And Anna could not believe that she didn't either see the exhibition that night at the Met or know that the whole point of the event was for, and right away, Anna just thought, like, how could she not know? But for someone like Blake Lively, she came in to see me first. And this is when we had lost Michelle Williams due to the writer asking her about Heath Ledger before we did the cover shoot. And she just wasn't ready. So she pulled that cover. And we bumped up Anne Hathaway to January, but we had a hole in February. And Sally Singer and I were desperate. So we go, how about that girl from Gossip Girl, and we can make it a New York issue? And Anna's like, fine, but I need to meet her first. So Blake comes in to meet me, and I look at her. I go, did you just come from set? And she goes, no. Why? I go, you're going to say you just came from set because of your hair and makeup. And I said, does that sweater close? It was a cardigan over a tank top. She goes, no. I go, okay, then we're going to turn around your tank top so it's higher. Because it was like boobs sticking out. So I literally did all that and walked her in. She goes, excuse the hair and makeup. I just came from set. I was like, phew. I always prep them. Very light makeup. Hair back, pulled back, no stringies if you have your hair up, no foundation, not black. If it's a morning meeting, don't be all dressed up in a cocktail look.
Very smart.
Yeah.
I think she said,
so what was the difference between Hamish and Tonne? I know they do very different things, but anything they taught you about how they present to the world? I know if you're weak, you get pretty crushed at that magazine. So it'd be interesting to know. Everyone has a technique, I think, to get what they need or to push through a story they want or a talent they want, how to go about doing that, because you can never push too hard. You almost have to do it in a way that Anna will come up with the idea that you want to do, but you have to plant it. There's a strategy to it all. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah. The thing about working for Hamish is, as I said, he is like so chaotic and like actually like really, really disorganized in a way that's like endearing. Like, this is not me shaking him at all, but he was one of just the luckiest people I've ever met. Like, he would have 4,000 words due at noon, and he was like uptown getting a facial at 9 and had written 50 words and would find a way to make it happen. And I think that from him, I learned the power of charm. He really is. He's brilliant and he's like incredibly well researched, but everything happens on his time and his way. And he is constantly pissing people off, but he relies on this like beautiful, like whimsical charm. And he can talk his way into an extension of the deadline. He can talk his way into this September story is now a March story because he simply must go see the flowers and when they're bloom and they're not in bloom now, so we can't write about it. And so I really thought like I picked up on the shtick. Like I learned how to like work
Yeah.
with people. I learned how to work,
Yes.
which you need in fashion. Like you got to
Right.
have a tap dance. We all have a tap dance. And he was incredible at that. And he presents himself as eccentric. Like I think his
Right.
eccentricities are what make people fall in love with him and let him write the rules of his own career. He similarly didn't come from this world, but he made himself necessary in the world by providing that like extra quirk that I think every office probably needs, but certainly every rarefied fashion office. And so I learned the art of the shtick from him. And then Tawny, it was like completely the opposite. She was like, well, she still has her um
But she has
moment.
a uniform versus a different shade of purple, full suit, matching socks,
Yes.
hat.
Yeah. She's like very no nonsense, down to business. Like this is a woman who would come in at 9 and we would sit together and we would make the board. We would comb through all of the lookbooks. She would get on the phone and talk to the producers. Like she wanted to know when we were scouting and what the location was like and if there was a weather report. Like she was really methodical in her preparation for shoots. And I think, as I said, I am naturally the opposite. And I'm like, whatever will happen, what happened will happen. Fly by the seat of her pants. If it's a good enough idea, it will sing and it will fly on its own. And she was completely the opposite. She was like an incredible master planner. She was always prepared. And when we came back and a shoot wasn't received well, it was like, okay, well, we're gonna do it again. And of course, this was a time when budgets allowed for stuff like that. But
Right.
what I learned from her is always be prepared for the worst, but always remain adaptable. So they were like Hamish was like, I'll push it through, I'll make it happen my own way. And she was like, I'm gonna play by the rules, but the second the rules fail,
Mm,
we're gonna adapt.
amazing. Oh, that's brilliant. And to have both sides, it's almost the best combo.
Totally.
While I was looking through all the issues we did together during your time at Vogue assisting Tawny, which I have all of them behind me, so I literally looked through them. It made me laugh so hard because almost every issue I found a story with a hot actor and a model that you guys did in an amazing location. I know you have Donald Gleason and Gigi, Alex Skarsgård, Margot, Luke Grimes. I know there's a story there. Tyler, the creator, and Kendall, Joe Alwyn, or as people refer to him, Taylor Swift's ex, and
Yeah.
Gigi. Any fun stories from those shoots? I know that you became like best friends with all the guys because you're so fun. Like you actually made it didn't feel like work to these actors. They're like,
Yeah.
this is great. I'm kissing a model. I'm hanging out with Gabby, and I'm in
Totally.
Hawaii. You know.
Yeah. No, I got really lucky that Tawny always did those, as we called them, trip stories. And we had the most fun ever. I mean, a lot of those stories were photographed by Mario Testino, and Mario was such a bon vivant. Like he loved life and he wanted the shoots to be like life. And there was
Mm,
wine and there was dinner and there was dancing. And I think Tawny really liked having an assistant who could like hang,
yes.
wasn't a wallflower.
Yeah, so she could leave early. It's like she would
Totally.
sneak out to bed and yep.
She's like, Gab's gonna take it from here. But I really did befriend all of those guys. What was so interesting was they were all in, and you did this work, which was finding them like right at the precipice of their massive success. So they were huge stars and they presented themselves like stars, but they didn't know it yet. It wasn't like verified,
Right.
validated. And so they were really just like 20-year-old guys. And really remember this super specifically on a story I did with Dev Patel and Iman Hamam
Mm.
under Tawny. And Dev had just come off of
Slumdog Millionaire.
Slumdog Millionaire. And he really felt like that like awkward, lanky guy. And he was like, what the hell am I doing here? He was afraid that he was going to be entering into an environment of hyper critique. Everyone was going to think he was like this ugly guy. He was like not this typical hot, hunky white dude. And he felt safe that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Felt safe that Iman was there. Like he understood that we were all kind of in this moment in our lives where we were forging our own identities and careers in a world that didn't affirm us, that didn't look like us, that we were breaking boundaries. And I think
You can see that in that story. I will
Yeah.
tell you, I've been recently looking at it because it was his birthday, so I posted it. I couldn't believe how comfortable he
Yeah.
looked. I couldn't believe how close he was with Iman. Even when they were holding hands and playing around in all those different shots, I was thinking, it looked real.
Yeah, I know. It was real. We were like all hanging out, like gallivanting around Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it was really, really, really fun. I think all of those stories are fun. Of course, I was like, I don't know, like a boy crazy 20-year-old or whatever. And I had crushes on all of them. And I was always like so mad because I was like, why is there a supermodel here? If it was just me and you, we would fall in love. But you have the distraction of Gigi Hadid. I'm no one saying no to that eye candy.
I remember I'd come into your office and I
Yeah.
wasn't asking you how the shoot went. I was asking you, so what did you guys do?
So what
Like,
remember.
did the makeup artist hook up with Luke Grimes or whatever
Yeah.
that story was?
100% did. And that's the thing about fashion, I think that people don't recognize is that so much of our job is all encompassing that our social life becomes the work. So it's
Yes.
whether it's going to dinner parties or cocktails or like you really do become friends with the people you work with because you do not see anybody else.
Well, that's what Tani said. Tani said, this is not a job. This is our life.
It's our life.
It really does, which it's not. So that's where you end up
That's
like me staying there for 20 years. But
Yeah.
and then looking at the covers, I mean, you came at a major time. So 2015, some highlights. Taylor Swift and Carly. I remember how hard that was to get that shoot together, but it's still great. Beyonce and Angelina, one that we'll talk about because that was a tricky one. And I've talked to Tani and Karen about it. Then 2016, Adele, Rihanna, Taylor Swift again, Lupita in Africa, and the one that I wish I had been on, but there'd be no reason why I would be on, is Michelle Obama. You had major covers during your time assisting.
It was really insane. And it's such a credit to Tawny. I think about this all the time because the magazine system is not the way it once was. It's getting bounced around over 5 different editors. Maybe you get 2 a year. This is a woman with over 120, I think, covers. And it's just such a testament that in my 4 or 5 years or whatever working with her, that all of those people came across her desk and she did all of those covers. But they were incredible to bear witness to. Out of all of them, I think Michelle Obama was insane because we were really in the White House and it was right before the Trump presidency. And it was just this like feeling of deflation. I remember asking, did you watch the debates between Hillary and Trump? And she was like, I didn't even watch them. She was like, I can't go there. And it was one of those moments where it was clarified to me these mega stars, these people that we're working with for the purpose of putting them on the cover of the biggest fashion magazine in the world, they're showing up on their Tuesday or whatever. Like this is just a day in life. And I think by virtue of having done it so much, I became very good at letting people feel comfortable with me. Like I was good at making sure that they felt seen and heard and taken care of when my boss had to be like wrangling Annie or something.
Right. But not in a fangirl way, which that's very important because there can be an assistant who, and I've seen it, where it's like, can you take a selfie with me? Where it's very different, where you're almost finding a reason to go talk to the talent. And I see it and I'm like, whoa. Like,
no.
What? But I know I've witnessed it with you. Like, it's something, and I don't even have to ask you what your superpower is later because that's what it is. It's this connecting. It's almost, but it just happens. It's almost like a vibe thing, I think, even before you talk,
Yeah. I mean, I was very much raised in the like old school, not seen, not heard, don't put yourself in front of the town, So it was not something I ever solicited, but I do think that it's just a comfort thing. I think because I'm so different than what they expect in that room, they
interesting. Yes.
They're like, okay, well, you're also an outsider. So I can trust you or you can be the person who helps me out. But all of those shoots were incredible. I mean, Adele was amazing because it was like one of those it was my first time seeing like a proper plus size cover. Right. When I think about it, like the first one that I had worked on at least. Actually, it might have been the first one. Like, who else would have been
Yeah,
before her?
the only other one you would have been on, maybe, I'd have to see when it came out, would have been the group of models where Ashley Graham was one of them, but definitely with the little short shorts.
Oh, I was on that. Oh my God,
But that
yes.
might have
That was
been
a whole,
after,
that was a whole, no, that was before, but that was a whole
before.
drama. Oh my God. And then everybody was so mad. And Prada made these custom shorts for everyone, but hers were, of course, black. They weren't the pattern
Mm.
that everybody else had. And it was like, of course, it was an oversight. Of course, I wish that I, as the lone fat person in the room, had thought about it. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, damn, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well,
Because
is it like they didn't have enough of the other fabric left or something? That just seems very odd. I'm just saying.
I think it must have honestly been a time thing.
Yeah.
I think it was like they didn't have the time to make it and they had this similar material in a black. I hope that's what it was about. I know that there was no intention of like trying to be slimming or anything like that because that's
Right.
who Tawny is. But I think it was an important lesson because it proved to me, at least, that you can't just check the box. Like
Right.
you have to engage in good faith and actually including someone. Like inclusion is not they're there. It's like they're considered to the same degree. They're almost like considered more so to even the playing field. And in a lot of ways, that was the first cover where I was like, okay, we got a lot of work to do if we're going to try and speak about inclusion and size
Right. When you think about all the covers or all the shoots you've done, do you have a favorite and a favorite talent?
Oh, okay. Well, my favorite talent was Donald Gleason. I like really fell in love with that man. I was obsessed with him.
I can't believe they made out almost. I didn't realize how racy these shoots were.
Crazy. And that was actually something that, like, I mean, Gigi is a team player and she's a consummate professional, but I think even Donald was like, this is crazy. Very much. And then my favorite shoot, I loved Copenhagen. As an assistant, I loved Copenhagen with Joe Alwyn and Iman and Gigi. We were like kids on semester abroad. Like it was so fun. And we had the best food ever. We ended up at sunrise jumping into the river in Copenhagen after a night of partying. It was just so fun.
Oh my God. I remember how hard it was for me to push him through.
Really? He's so
Yes.
brilliant and beautiful. He's
Well,
very
I think the problem is, and I've talked about this, that if Anna asks me, Jill, we need a boy for this story. And I said, I got the perfect one, Joe Alwyn. It's almost like I should have took
give
my
it away too
time.
fast.
Yes. And it was like, think harder. If I hear that again, think harder. Was there any shoot that haunts you at night that either you wish you had done something different or, I don't know, that it was just painful and you still have PTSD from?
Oh, absolutely. Iceland with Annie Leibovitz. PTSD
Oh, well,
beyond.
so much went wrong on that. Didn't
So
someone get
much wrong.
sick?
Someone got sick. There was a fire on the island that Anak was supposed to fly to. So she got like completely stranded in Iceland. We were shooting on an active volcano that was smoking in platform Marc Jacobs shoes. So it was just like the imminent threat of death at all points. We were on a melting ice cap and we were I changed Anak into a crystal circle skirt by Celine that can only be hand carried. So we're literally hiking. We have snowshoes on, claws, hiking up an ice cap, trying to change on the side of this rock face. Like it just was, we always say, me and my assistant at the time, who was also my best friend, and Grace Coddington's assistant, Lauren Bellamy, who you know very well.
Yes.
We always say that was like a 32-hour hellscape with mini naps in between. Like we never got a full night's sleep because the sun never set. And Annie was always chasing that golden hour. And the golden hour was 20 hours long. So like we were just shooting just nonstop in a car.
Were you ever starstruck on any of these shoots? Michelle Obama, that's a given, right? And I just love that you spoke to her. That was just like a conversation you had. I would die to be in a room with her. Any moments of just like, oh my God. Beyonce, did you interact a lot with Beyonce on that shoot?
Beyonce was crazy because we blew our budget by like 10 on the house that we were in. Remember, it was like that crazy mansion.
Yes. It was huge. It was huge. I'd get lost.
It's crazy. And I remember Tani and Mario really wanted her to have this wet hair look on the cover, but it required her to lean against the wall. And nobody thought, like, okay, that's not water in her hair. Like, it's gel. Ruined the entire wall of the house.
Oh my God.
And I remember us having to figure out a way that we were going to negotiate the insurance, because there was also a $50,000 jewelry loss because it was thrown away in the garbage. Everything on that shoot was fucking a nightmare. I also have PTSD about that shoot, but I wasn't starstruck when I saw her because she was so lovely. I don't think I've only been starstruck in front of folks who I don't feel that I'll ever see in real life. Michelle Obama was one of them. I was like pretty starstruck with Kamala Harris only because it was during COVID, and so we couldn't get very close.
Right.
So I only saw her out of the corner of my eye. And when she was on set, we were 20 feet away and she had all the Secret Service around her. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, she's the first Black vice president.
Yeah. Well, you know which one was crazy? When I was on maternity leave, getting a call that Anna wanted Rihanna for April when we'd already shot Kendall. And then they wanted to bump Kendall to June, which would bumped off Margot. And everyone was telling me, oh yeah, Margot's being difficult. But here I'm on maternity leave. I go, no. I know that's not true. That's what you guys say to Anna to get Anna to say, let's drop someone. And I go, that's not true. It all ended up working out. But I mean, you ended up having to do Rihanna the same time you were doing that other story with the guy from Game of Thrones, because we had to use one of those days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. But I love that Matt and Marcus cover with her in that.
Yeah, it was kind of the walking on water.
Yes. But I'm sure you waited for hours for her because she's typically not on time.
Yeah. No, weirdly, I think she like was on time to the location. It was just getting out of the glam room was 8 hours. A good 8 hours.
Because for British Vogue, she wanted her first daytime shoot. So she got there at 11. And the last shoot of the day was supposed to be the cover that we ran at 4:30 when the sun was setting. That was our first shoot. Our first picture that day was the cover.
Wow.
So we shot again through the night, but
I can't. Lives we've lived.
I remember we spoke a lot when we were both there. We had probably 100 cigarettes outside by the memorial. And I know for a while before you left, you were really ready to leave. And I tried as hard as I could to encourage you to do so. I just remember agonizing conversations because it was clear, like we all know, that there's a ceiling there at Vogue and you really do have to leave and come back. And I know the fear of leaving. Listen, I stayed there 20 years. I could have had it on my resume after 3 or 2. Just explain a little bit about that move. And I don't know, when you're leaving, did you really think you were going to be coming back?
Yeah. I mean, yes. When I was leaving, it was very clear to me that there's no middle managerial or like stakeholding position in fashion. It's like you're an assistant. They developed an associate title while I was there and I became an associate editor. And then the next step up is like legends. It's like Phyllis, Grace, Tawny, and
no one retires. I know. We always talk about that. No one retires.
No one, because why would you? Like, to be completely honest, like I got into fashion at a time when I thought that was going to be my future when I was 60. And it's so not what my future is going to be like when I was 60. But if those were my salaries and that was the flexibility of my schedule, I think about it now and it's like, what do you mean you have 12 shoots a year and that's your whole job? I had 12 shoots last month and I'm barely making my overhead. You know what I mean? So it was, it makes sense that they didn't go anywhere. And I thought maybe I could become a great. Maybe they could just add a fourth one if I go and spend 10 years building an incredible portfolio at another magazine. And I really was using Edward Enninful as my like North Star. I was like, this was like contributing a man who wasn't what Vogue was in our minds. And he was there and then he went to W and then he was doing freelance stuff and he came back as a fashion director and This was before he
Mm-hmm.
became editor-in-chief of British Vogue, just before. But I thought there's no way to make it to legend. You can't go from the mailroom to the CEO of Vogue.
Right.
No, there is no pathway for that. So if I leave and get a little bit of experience outside of this specific framework and I create a body of work that resonates with folks, maybe there will be something that is identifiably interesting enough to bring me back to Vogue. And I did think that I would be back there. I had no idea it would be under the circumstances that it was, which of course was 2020, and like the
Right.
reckoning with the fact that there were not people of color contributing to the fashion space at an equitable level, and that I happened to be somebody who was, tried and true and tested through those doors, and like maybe it would be good to bring me back. And
Well, let's talk about that, because you said it best when you told the New York Times magazines were realizing that if they were invested in diversity and inclusion, they needed to actually have people of color working for them. So this is obviously around the time that they began wooing you back. So it was 2021 when you returned as global contributing fashion editor at large. When discussing your return to Vogue, you told the New York Times, I was contending with these feelings of like, okay, I'm trying to get to the top and be respected in an industry full of people whose values don't align with mine. So what does that say about me? I realized that the only way I could be good with that was if I didn't hide anymore. I'm not going to pretend. A part of my personality isn't loud and political and silly and interested in the housewives and reality TV. And if I experienced pushback, this person isn't very Vogue, or this is not a Vogue story, I would fight for it. So that's a great way to return somewhere, but that also doesn't happen that often, that you can return with that point of view, with guns blazing in a way, right?
Yeah.
So you had the power at that time to negotiate the terms of being hired.
Yeah, definitely. I had those conversations with Christian, and the contract that I negotiated was something that I would not have been able to negotiate outside of the context of 2020, and outside of knowing that my voice was necessary there. And whether or not it would be necessary if the entire world wasn't auditing what fashion magazines were doing, I'm not so sure. But at the time, those were the cards that I held, and I used them as such. And yeah, all of it was true. I did fight. I did push for the projects that mattered to me. I also pushed for projects that weren't just about inclusivity and diversity. I was like, I can do all of that stuff, but like, why can't I have the most amazing cover with the thinnest pop star in the world that's going to be an automatic win? Why does it have to be the challenging stories that Gab gets to do, and why, and where's the reward in that? And
like Kamala Harris, it's not like you're able to use your incredible stylist eyes when you're putting her in whatever she usually wears.
Oh, exactly. Which, by the way, and I've said this before, I barely picked it. Like, she has her own stylist. We had 10 minutes with her. Like, it was not a big deal. But then, yeah, of course, like facing the scrutiny after things like that. And I think part of the reason why I did have to leave again, ultimately, was just I felt like the allowance of me being there. And this is a conversation I had all the time with our creative director at the time, Juan Costa Paz, who was very much interested in pushing the agenda of a new creative set, who was not so invested in the idea of diversification and just really wanted to bring Vogue back to the top. I was like, you can try your damnedest to beat me down, but I'm going to stay until the minute I can't handle it anymore. And that time came, and I had to go, and I miss it enormously in a lot of ways. And I'm really proud of the work that I did there. Some of the covers that I did there are
let me just read some of them off. I mean, as global contributing fashion editor at large, you styled 13 international covers of Vogue, featuring Serena Williams' Paloma. That was your first Vogue cover as solo stylist. Kamala Harris, Amanda Gorman. I'll look at some of the others, because you did like 5 in a row or something.
Yeah, did not even know that until you.
Yeah, you had Paloma was January 2021. You had Kamala Harris February 2021. April was Selena Gomez. May was Amanda Gorman. September was the group of models that you co-styled with Tani. Then in 2022, you had January Olivia Wilde. April, Bella, September, Serena, and Florence Pugh. You had Margot Robbie, Summer, and then you just decide to slip in a British Vogue cover with an
Oh yeah.
just
Oh,
right
God.
after that.
That was
I
what a
mean,
time. It's interesting because I've never heard it read out before. And when I think about it, I think of all of the reasons why I was asked to do those projects. Some of them were like slam dunks. You can't get any better than Bella, but I also have an incredible personal relationship with Bella. And the story was about her development psychologically and her, like, the place she was mentally. And so there was some gravitas to it. But when I think about all of them, they were all like tricky. Like none of them were just like Lady Gaga. Or, you know what I mean? They're like,
right.
okay. It was like always really, you needed to
Well, you followed in Tawny's
find
footsteps. Tawny always
exactly.
got the tricky ones. It's like when it came to a model, it was Grace or
Yeah.
it was Camilla. And then Tawny was given the non-traditional Vogue covers,
Yeah.
whether it was Adele, whether it was Amy Schumer, whether it was athletes. We did a couple with Serena, the Presleys, the three of them, and trying to make, she always got the tricky ones. But when I was doing research on you, there's a lot of articles that say, as if this is a huge honor, that you were the first Black woman to style a cover of Vogue. Okay,
Wow.
so I was there when Tyler Mitchell photographed Beyonce for the cover, and all the press picked up on, or we even put out there, that he was the first Black photographer to shoot a cover of Vogue. So Vogue didn't get pats on the back for that. It was as if they were promoting the fact that Vogue has only had white people shoot their covers for 86 years. So what do you think about when you read that? Do you feel that it's an honor to have been the first, or does it just highlight what magazine you're working for and the fact that it has never had a Black stylist do a cover, or that you don't want to be seen as the first Black stylist to do a cover, but you're just a great stylist and you did a cover and let's move on. That's my job.
Yeah. I think initially I very much was indoctrinated into the school of thinking that like Vogue is the best, most powerful, most prestigious fashion magazine in the world. To get to the top of Vogue means that in some way you're reflecting the best and the hardest work and you've made it and you've survived. And so I took great pride in being the first to do it. And then it started becoming the first part of my bio in anything.
Yes, it is.
In any article, in any interview. And I started to realize it wasn't a feat as though I achieved it. Like I outdid so many other Black women to make it to the top of this mountain. It was that I was alone in this discussion. And it ended up being really sad for me to consider the fact that I could be a trailblazer in anything. I'm like, it's the year 2020. What do you mean there are still areas in culture in which Black people have not succeeded to the point of the highest zenith? How are there still firsts to be done? And what's been even harder for me to metabolize is just that there hasn't been anyone since.
Right.
And so it's like, what does that mean if it exists in a vacuum? And if that designation can be played out and used as affirming some sort of progress, then surely there should be others behind me. And I try very hard to keep the doors that I've opened open. But there seems to be like this inability to really platform, recognize, support Black women in specific. I think that we've seen a lot more Black stylists. There's a lot more Black men involved in fashion. Fashion has always been a place that's like very dominated by gay men, which we know and we love. And so there is a little bit more acceptance, but I would like to see who the second Black woman is. That's what that's what my head is. I'm like, let's move on, let's move forward. And I won't let that define me as some sort of end all and be all achievement. Like I would much rather consider that to be a pivotal stepping stone in a much broader, amazing career that I built for myself. So that I have complicated feelings about that designation, but pride is still among them for sure.
Of course. And listen, being on a cover of Vogue, shooting a cover of Vogue, doing the hair on a cover of Vogue, styling a cover of Vogue is the pinnacle of success in our industry. So regardless, the pride is that you accomplished that many times over.
I agree.
But because we have to wrap it up soon, there's two quotes that I think really tie this whole conversation up that I just love. One is, work the process of knowing who you are, because it's in those moments of unease where you learn, and there's the most growth. And the best ever, I just hope that whatever comes to be of this career of mine is something that models possibilities for the next Gabriella Karefa-Johnson. I can't wait to take those tools and apply them in ways that are really just true to who I am, serve me, and serve people who look like me. Bravo. You are doing that. You've
Thanks,
done
Jill.
that, and you will continue to do that. So at the end of each episode, I like to ask my guests the same 7 rapid fire questions.
Oh gosh. Okay.
And it's this or that. And I put my answers that I think you're going to say next to them just to see how I do.
Okay.
AM or PM?
PM.
Text or talk?
Text.
Uber or Subway?
Oh, honestly, nowadays, Subway.
Book or film?
Both.
Sweet or spicy?
Spicy.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer. Spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Top or bottom?
Top.
So I got PM right. I got talk wrong. I said talk. Uber, I said book. Spicy, stripes, top.
I almost said book. I am a bookworm, but I'm like, well, because I'm trying to diversify into media now, Jill. So I'm watching a lot more film and TV.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And we've got to hang out. And I cannot wait to see all that you do. And, I want to see more covers. You should just start a magazine, my friend.
Oh, from your mouth to whoever's ears, let's do it. You can make all the amazing bookings and castings like you always do.
Obviously. All right, lady.
All right. Ciao.
Okay. Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. And be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.